Today, we at the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition are here talking to Don Hayes and Lewis Grove. And Don and Lewis, I'd invite you to tell everybody where you're from.
Sure. Hello, everybody. This is Don Hayes. I'm the director of the Veterans Legal Assistance Project, housed out of the South Royalton Legal Clinic, affiliated with Vermont Law School in South Royalton, Vermont.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lewis Grove. I'm an attorney at the South Royalton Legal Clinic, working under Don specifically on veterans housing issues around the state under the Safely Home program.
The Veterans Legal Assistance Project, or VLAP as we like to call it, really started back in 2014. We're a grant-funded program affiliated again with the South Royalton Legal Clinic, and we provide legal services to Vermont's veterans.
As Don mentioned, we received some money, some grant money in the past year here to kind of supercharge our veterans housing services, legal services, specifically around evictions tied to the pandemic. Of course, there's been moratoria at both the state and federal level about evictions for a little while. So there's been this sort of, as we imagine it, kind of a building pressure legally for services, needed services in these communities. And so what Safely Home does is essentially we provide pro bono services to veterans that are facing eviction, that are housing at risk of homelessness, or we may just need some help with habitability concerns. We've had folks with heating issues, that kind of stuff. And essentially, what we do is we provide them with legal guidance and maybe representation in court. We help them get to the sort of social services that they might need and which are very helpfully available right now for them.
I'm dealing with at least one veteran, but probably more like half a dozen veterans who are either transitioning in, or in some sort of temporary housing program. The VA has this grant per diem program, and there are a number of veteran, housing outfits around the state that offer temporary housing up to 24 months for veterans. The grant per diem program is really designed to give these facilities some money to operate with the condition that the veteran only be in that facility for up to 24 months. The whole idea is transitional housing. Well, of course, what we're experiencing now, because there's been a backlog in the evictions, because the housing market is so crunched right now, there's not a ton of turnover. So these hotel programs they're almost like a dam in a way, and we can see a lot more demand building up behind that dam. And there's literally no place for veterans to go. The rental market is extremely tight right now. We've heard countless stories of veterans who apply for housing in either one of these temporary housing facilities or in a long-term veteran facility where there may be 300 or 400 applications per bed or per room. So it's really, without these hotel programs, I have a veteran right now who's housed in he was going through a foreclosure. We were able to create a plan for him to sell his home. It was a home that he could no longer afford to keep. He was able to sell his home, get some proceeds. The problem, of course, once the sale was completed, is he had no place to go. We hooked him up with a housing counselor who got him into a hotel where he's lived since April. And I check in with him periodically, just about every month so far. And it's been extended. And it's just, for him, it's almost become a way of life. Like he's grown accustomed now to living in the hotel, and certainly that's not his preferred choice. Mm-hmm. But I think thankfully, the funding keeps getting extended because, but for this guy would be homeless because there's simply no, there are no apartments or facilities available for him long term. The Threelegged Stool is a great way to sort of look at it, and that kind of that client wrap that we can get around folks to not just provide legal representation, but potentially connect with resources or whatever, is so critical because, first of all, in dealing with a population where there is a higher incidence of post-traumatic stress, it's oftentimes difficult for veterans to, and this is not universal by any stretch of the imagination, but those who are facing some sort of housing instability, it's difficult for them to engage the system. There's potentially an inherent, mistrust. There are, some mental health issues potentially that, we have to confront or overcome. So I think providing, and really earning the trust of the people that we serve is huge. And I've seen it, in my own experience, and Lewis can certainly speak to this. The housing issues certainly become more complicated when you're dealing with other potential mental health issues. And, I think that's one thing that we've been able to do is by providing the legal representation, which potentially eliminates a huge stressor, and then working with other service organizations that can help with the housing piece of it. We may be able to deal with a legal conflict, but then once the legal conflict is resolved, either for the benefit of or to the detriment of the veteran, there needs to be that next step. There needs to be, either a permanent housing solution or, whatever. And I feel like us, I like that concept of kind of wrapping services around a client. Us being connected with different veteran service organizations, different outreach groups allow us to provide a more holistic, strategy.
Yeah, I think there's still some uncertainty about the numbers and how the pandemic has affected folks, whether veterans have been affected disproportionately or whatever. But, in Vermont, we know that our veterans tend to skew older than the general population. They tend to have, like Don mentioned, a higher incidence of mental health issues. And what we know is that the pandemic has affected those specific demographics more so than others. Those are the folks that have lost jobs in higher numbers, who have seen bigger losses of income, all that. And so, we're still getting numbers in on how this has affected folks, but the immediate assumption would be that this has affected veterans probably just like before the pandemic. Homelessness was higher incidence rates among veterans. It probably has affected them at a higher rate than during the pandemic. So, unfortunately, you mentioned it's a multifaceted problem, of course, and it's a big thing that no one's going to solve, of course. But the unfortunate part is, we just have one little slice of it, really, too. And as much as we can do to try to keep somebody in their housing or whatever, once they've lost it, unfortunately, the legal issues become somewhat less important to the broader current of the housing market as it stands. So.
I think that pushing back against the demand curve, so the idea of getting the heroes out there to maybe not get as much rent as the market will bear, I think is so, we have to recognize housing and affordable housing really as a community issue. Not, it should not be driven by bottom line. It should be driven by, our interest in providing, safe, affordable housing for all members of our community. Sometimes people don't realize the importance of having affordable housing. Your people in emergency services, your teachers, your, the clerks at a store can actually live like in the community that they serve, which is so huge. But it involves those heroes, and it involves pushing back against the demand curve, and just recognizing as the property owner that there are other benefits that are almost collateral to your bottom line that you experience when you make housing affordable.
If you're somebody out there, a veteran, obviously, or anybody that's maybe at risk of homelessness somewhere down the line, it's important to face it as soon as you can. The sooner you can get an attorney and talk to some folks that can help you, the better that process is going to go. It's such a terrifying idea that you are going to lose housing, and I think it's really easy to ignore those phone calls or not check the mail or whatever. And we see clients that do that, and I absolutely sympathize with it, how scary it is. I think the most important thing is to get help as soon as you can in the process. The sooner you get help, the better the outcome is going to be, and the more control you're going to have over the situation.
Well, I think the most important thing is we're rising to the challenge of addressing the unmet legal need of Vermont's veterans, and we're here to serve those who have served us, and we'd like to continue to do that. And we really do take a holistic approach. I mean, it's not just the VA benefit appeals, the discharge upgrades. it's the housing stuff, foreclosure defense, eviction defense, estate planning, things like that. We are here to serve those who have served us, and we'd like to continue to do that.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for taking time to talk to me today, but even more than that, and more importantly, thank you for all the work you're doing for our veterans.